I always listen to my podcast in the car, especially when I drive to work and back, and it's always the same track. It's really a waste of time if you just listen to music for 1 hour each day, when instead you can do something educational or something, listen to a podcast where you can learn something from.
I'm listening to podcasts when doing my makeup.
So I used to walk from office to home, and it used to be around 7-8 kilometers. And that's when I used to listen to podcasts, and that kept me going the distance. So it was a win-win for me. My workout also done, and some information on the go.
So I listen to podcasts usually when I'm up early in the morning, and that has been the case over the lockdown. Otherwise, it's just when I'm traveling or catching a break from work.
So that was Max Dupont, Magdalena Folwerska, Ravi Kiran, and Deva Prasad, respectively, telling us when do they listen to their podcasts. So, when do you choose to listen to podcasts? Please tell me. My name is Parth, and this is Dhvani. Before we begin today's episode, I have a small request. Please consider rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts because that can really help me in understanding what I'm doing right or wrong. Unfortunately, Apple Podcast is one of the only podcasting mediums where this is possible. So if you can do that, it would be awesome. So I recently moved to a new place, a new country actually, and movement can be very overwhelming. It can be exciting and fun. At the same time, it can be very challenging, especially in these difficult times. And that's why I thought in this episode I will talk about some things that I have been feeling for a very long time, but never really got an opportunity to express them so freely. I was also thinking of introducing myself a little bit since I haven't done that properly yet. So this could be a good start. I was born in Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh, India, but my hometown is Lucknow, the capital of Uttar Pradesh. I grew up in Lucknow, did my schooling from there. At the age of 18, I moved to Navi Mumbai for college. Then during this 4 years of bachelor's program, in the second year, I went to a city called Lille in France for an exchange for a semester, that is 6 months. Came back to Mumbai for the rest of the education. Then in third year, moved to Bangalore for a 3-month internship. Came back to Mumbai again for a semester and then went back again to Bangalore for my final project for another 6 months. After finishing college, I got placed in a company in Mumbai, within the city this time, not Navi Mumbai, because for a Mumbaikar, Navi Mumbai is a different, distant town. They don't consider it as a part of Mumbai. I worked at this organization for almost 1.5 years and then my brand got shifted to Bangalore. So I shifted with the brand since I had the option to do so. And also because I was a big fan of this brand that I was working for. The office culture and the people in Mumbai was so nice that I think I got spoiled a little bit. Things weren't so great in the Bangalore office and I switched my job very soon after that movement. And after that, I lived and worked in Bangalore for almost 2 years, till the point when I got disgusted by this organization that I switched to. I quit the job very abruptly without any planning whatsoever, traveled for a month around the Himalayas near the Western Ghats, and finally ended up back in Lucknow with my parents when I ran out of money and morale. My main reason for quitting that job was that I received a bad performance rating for an entire year of my work and dedication. And you know why? Due to my honesty. And maybe because of some ideological differences that me and my superiors had. And for all that hard work and all those sleepless nights that I spent in that office were negated just like that. And I know it is very cliched to say so, but at that moment, I was really sure that this organization doesn't deserve me. Also, I think this is one of the injustices of big corporates and organizations where people like me often end up being collaterals. And while I tell you this, I don't want you to feel pity for me. In fact, today when I look back in hindsight, I realize that one of the things is that maybe it was just me seeking validation or appreciation that I thought I deserved but never got. Most of us need validation, I think, and I am no one to talk about the rights and wrongs of this. The other thing is that disgust that I spoke about was an excuse or a trigger for me. The real reason was that I really wanted to experiment with my career and aspirations. But whoever has done something like this would relate that how scary things can get, especially if you don't have a sense of direction or planning or passion. Well, I had passion, but most of the time that's just not enough. After quitting and almost after 6 months of trying to figure out the next steps without any real progress, followed by a very painful heartbreak and eventually a tragic death in the family, I get a call for a job in Bangalore for a really interesting opportunity. Not a big company like the ones that I was used to, but they were also ready to give me a hike. At that point, I don't think I could have asked for anything more. It was just the perfect reboot, restart that my life needed at that point. Now, this misery, the grief, my act of taking that sudden decision to quit like that, and all those things that were happening all at once changed a lot of perceptions for me. And there's so much that I can and would love to discuss in this episode. I want to talk about fear and how the perception of fear changed for me forever after those 6 months. And before that, let's go back to movement and why this is important in this context. See, when you are constantly moving from one place to another, you are often perceived as a struggler by the society around you, because most of us innately seek stability, safety, reduction of uncertainties, and taking as much control of our lives as possible. And movement challenges all of that, right? Especially when it is not planned extensively. Travel, migration, movement from one place to another can be like a gamble. You might have to trade off, give up a lot of things for something that you desire, the bigger goals, let's say. And either you learn to live with these new changes, embrace them, or you go in denial. Like this happened with me when I moved from Mumbai to Bangalore. For almost 2 years, I thought that either I have not accepted the city or the city hasn't accepted me. But then when I left for this experiment with my life, and as I mentioned that I found a job back in Bangalore, came again after a gap of almost 6 months, this time things were different. And I'll tell you why. First reason was that I moved to a different area in the city. It was much more livelier. It represented the culture of Bangalore in a totally different and better way, I would say. And I did a lot of other things apart from my job. I was doing music, performing regularly, was able to get into sports quite actively. I was a volunteer at Asia's only music museum. And I also started conceptualizing the idea of Dhvani at that time. Also, another reason could be that maybe since I went through a very tough patch just before getting that job, a change in place served as a very nice distraction for me. One of the very important things I realized about myself that was changing right there at that moment was that I became fearless. I was just not afraid of losing money, people, love, job, everything that we usually are scared of losing. Or if that sounds too dramatic, let's say I at least learned how to deal with that fear, tame it. And no matter how cliched Indian Mountain Dew's advertising tagline might sound, "Dar ke aage jeet hai," there's victory beyond fear. It is correct. And somehow the rat race that we all tend to be part of today has changed the meaning of this victory into something else altogether. Something not so fun, like competition, leg pulling, hypocrisy. It somehow makes people give up their humility because they think that being humble is a sign of weakness. But what I feel is that this fight, this competition was with my own self all along and nobody else. Not that manager that screwed my performance rating, not that colleague who was insecure all the time, not that friend who talked me out of pursuing my passion, not my teachers, and certainly not my parents. Because we often tend to blame people at different junctures of life for all the things that went wrong. And maybe they deserve to be blamed, but it is often just that fear that makes us think that way. Because not everything that exists need to be acknowledged. Once you lose that fear, you start noticing that all this blaming and name calling is a sheer waste of time, energy, and emotions. And maybe that time could have been used for something much better and productive. It might sound very inspirational, but if we simply switch this to the feeling of gratitude, every perception changes. Like once you start converting the not so good stuff that might have happened to you into a learning, in an opportunity, life starts becoming simpler and happier. And that's what we aim for, right? Now the cost one has to pay for that mindset comes in forms of some virtues like patience, dedication, determination, and the most important one, perseverance. And while those 6 months of pain taught me a lot, my unintentional pursuit of moving constantly from one place to another contributed a lot in that. The beautiful souls that I've met during all this time, the experiences that I've had, both good and bad ones, from the joy of achieving something in a foreign land to the pain of bidding goodbye to a loved one, I think this has made me a much better version of myself today. We often tend to discount the experiences and events that happen in our lives because nobody likes a show off, right? And many of us like to be modest in that aspect. But I think it is very important to take note of the little experiences, observations, feelings, and thoughts that we go through. And you know what? A lot of people do this unintentionally anyway. Some people write diaries, some take photos, they write journals or blogs, posts on Instagram, Facebook. You know what I mean. Even when you are not deliberately doing that, you are in a way documenting your life, right? Now, what is important here is not the medium, but the emotion, the feelings that you go through. And for that emotion, we often need to get out of our comfort zone. And often, movement does that. A lot of other things do that as well. But let's just say that movement would make sure to get you out of your comfort zone. One of the last things that I want to say is that I also mentioned about the problems and challenges that might come along with movement, but problems also create a lot of content to talk about. Small problems, funny problems, problems that don't even appear as legit problems for many people, and problems for which people have solutions for. Problems are a great icebreaker, you know? They generate this sense of relatability among strangers. So those were my 2 cents where I tried connecting how fear can be dealt with and how movement can play a role in that. I have a lot of these little things to talk about that I've managed to acknowledge somehow, and things that might have had a very profound impact on my life. So in the future you might hear something about gratitude, values, and many similar things that we often deal with but maybe just don't notice them. If you have observed or acknowledged a change like this in your personal or professional life, why not share it with the world? We all have amazing stories to tell, and my objective through this podcast is to make that space where you can do that. So please go ahead and write to me on info@dhvani.co.in. Sign up through the website, which is dhvani.co.in/podcast. I would love to receive voice notes from you on Facebook. That way I can directly put your sound on the podcast. I'm also on Instagram, and all these details are in the show description as well. The show was hosted and produced by me, Parth Chauhan. I'm currently based out of Greece, from the capital Athens. Theme music was created by Cutie Honey Bunch. The branding was done by Soumya Garg, and a lot of people have been supporting me in their own ways, including you, my dear listener. So please don't stop. In fact, if you have still not subscribed, please do that now. Each subscription counts, and you can do it anywhere: Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, JioSaavn, Stitcher, Amazon Echo, TuneIn, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Overcast, and all the places wherever podcasts can be found. So that was all for today. Till next time, stay safe, wear your mask while going out, and embrace the change. Tame it. See you in the next one. Adio.